Happy Friday, everyone. And it's Friday. That means Kylen Mills joins me for a new episode of Locked On Warriors. We're going to preview the Nuggets game. We're going to talk about Klay Thompson retiring in 2 years. I know, crazy news. It's not true, obviously, but we'll break down how the rumor even started and why irresponsible journalism was largely behind it. It should be a fun show. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter and Instagram at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRocho. Kylen, happy Friday. How are you doing? And any initial thoughts on the Warriors playing the Nuggets tonight? Should be a good game.
Happy Friday, Cyrus. I'm excited. Another Golden State Warriors game ahead. I can't believe we're into the season. Game 2 coming up. I mean, all of Deb Nation should be feeling good after that opening night win over the Lakers. A decisive win, a good-looking win, and the Lakers now becoming the laughingstock of the NBA is just serendipitous, isn't it?
It doesn't. The craziest part to me is that people are shocked. It's like did you not watch the Lakers last year? And then when you look at the roster changes, they did virtually nothing outside of Pat Beverly. I like that move for now, even though you gave up a young asset for him, but he brings something to the table. I actually like Lonnie Walker, but this is a team that I don't mean to make this a Lakers show, but they have no shooting whatsoever. And their defense is okay. It's not great. And I thought Charles Barkley said the best thing last night in terms of accurately dissecting the Lakers, which is that you can't make a 37, soon to be 38-year-old player the primary focal point of your team if you want to be a legit contender. Anthony Davis needs to be that guy. And it's crazy that Anthony Davis 4 or 5 years ago was in the conversation with Giannis, Steph as the best players in the game. He is not in that conversation anymore. It's crazy. Even healthy, he's no longer that impact player. So, yeah, they're done. I thought what stuck out to me the most from that game was the fact that the Warriors' win over the Lakers was far more convincing than the Clippers. I know they were in LA, but, technically it's the Lakers' home game. But, everyone's hyping up the Clippers, I'm sorry, like Barkley and Kenny the Jet Smith on TNT last night both picked the Clippers to come out of the West and win the title this year, which is crazy to me. I think the Warriors are far superior. Shifting gears though, because yesterday all the headlines were about Klay Thompson, and I want to play this clip first that from Klay Thompson's press conference yesterday, and we're going to play some sound from JaMychal Green and talk about him too. But this really took all the headline news because Klay Thompson, first of all, I was very surprised he even came to the podium. Usually there's 2 players and a coach that address questions following practice. So Kerr came out. JaMychal Green came out, presented some great talking points about, coming to the Warriors, and we'll play that sound and talk about it in just a minute. Then Stephen Curry came out, and that was jovial. He mostly talked about waking up Cannon, his brother-in-law Damian Lee's game winner for the Suns. I didn't think Klay Thompson was going to come out. I bounced. And then I find out later that Klay comes out, answers questions, and then he ended the press conference on this note and just kind of left after this. And let me just cue up this sound right now, where he talked about a story that I didn't even know was out there, insinuating that Klay might retire when his contract expires in 2 years. Here's Klay.
Also, there was a report out there. I have no intention of retiring in 2024. So if you write some dumb shit like that, just be held accountable, because that's crazy. Just because I didn't play 5-on-5 doesn't mean I'm going to retire. That's absurd. That's all I got to say.
And real quick, I obviously want your thoughts on this, Kylen, but just I want to share the reason why this became a story. 3 days ago, our good friend Connor Letourneau, who was just on the show yesterday, was on KNBR radio. And I worked at KNBR from 2000 to 2009, maybe 10. I was there for like almost 10 years. It was a long run. And they're a radio station. They're a sports talk radio station. They decided some years ago to start getting into the textual side of things, writing stories on their website. So they're supposedly, I guess, branching into journalism. I don't know. They've been writing content on their website for a while, but they posted this total clickbait article, and they posted this back on the 17th. So this is Tuesday when this came out. And again, just to give some perspective and context for people, sports talk radio is like, if you're a guest on a sports talk radio show, or even if you're hosting one, it's mostly a conversation, and opinions are espoused consistently. That's all it is. You're just literally having a conversation back and forth. You're expressing your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions on things. And Connor was a guest on Papa and Lund. By the way, John Lund now has a show on Locked On, so welcome to the team. And Connor just threw this one sentence out there, all right? And it was just one sentence where he just said that he thought maybe, like, it wouldn't shock him if Klay Thompson, right here, here's a line. I personally would not be shocked if Klay just retired from basketball at the end of that contract. I don't think it's going to be between this season and next season. If he does retire in the near future, it would be after his contract ends. He had no interest or desire to talk about extensions, even though he is extension eligible right now, unquote. He just literally expressed a feeling. Okay. Like he didn't like come out and say, I've had sources tell me this. He didn't come out and say, like, I think this has happened. All he said was, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't surprise me if Klay, at the end of this contract, retired. And KNBR rolled with it, put it in the headline. And it really peeves me, by the way, that any organization that is not a wire service like the Associated Press or Reuters, when they come out and they don't put a byline with their stories. So we don't even know who individually wrote this. It was just KNBR staff. But yeah, so they put in their headline, possibility of Klay retiring in 2024. This was clickbait at its finest. Connor did not in any way strongly insinuate this was going to happen. All he said was, it wouldn't shock me if he did. If his contract expires, if he retires, if when his contract expires, if Klay retires. And so Klay got wind of this somehow. We don't know how. But because of this clickbait article, like Klay Thompson is upset clearly because, he's hearing reports that people are talking about his retirement. Connor Letourneau, just going on this talk show, a radio talk show, now has to have like all this hatred and attention brought on him because of one opinion he said on a radio talk show, when all you do in radio is espouse opinions. So I feel bad for Connor. I feel bad for Klay Thompson. I say to my former employer, KNBR, shame on you for that. That was a clickbait article. Your thoughts, Kylen? I've talked more than enough.
No, you're absolutely right. My husband actually works not for KNBR, but for 95.7 The Game, a different sports talk radio station. And that's pretty much all they do is obviously you can discuss, certain facts regarding the teams in the Bay Area, but also it's making conjectures and, putting your opinions out there, putting hot takes out there, making things interesting for listeners and sharing your opinions on the topics that are important to Bay Area sports. And that's what they do all day long for hours and hours and hours. And they bring on a number of guests. So that means opinions are constantly being thrown around. Like there would literally be like a headline article every second of every day if you were to write an article and take one little snippet of what someone said and put it in a headline. Like there would be, as you said, kind of clickbaity articles, headlines like this would happen constantly if you did that for every single thing a host, a guest, whoever said on sports talk radio. And I hear, and I'm trying to think of like another example off the top of my head. I don't know, but like the hosts, I listen to my husband's station all the time. Yeah. The hosts constantly are putting out takes of their own that may be true, may not be true, and they don't belong on the headline of an article. So I understand totally what you're saying in that. I also would love to hear like the context of how the conversation led up to that point, because who knows, the host may have been saying like, hey, I could see Klay Thompson retiring in the near future. If he he did retire, when do you think that would happen, Connor? And they could have led him to that point. And at that point, you're on the radio to give what your opinion might be. So I don't fault Connor for saying anything or saying something like that, because it wasn't a strong statement, as you mentioned. If you look at the exact quote, like you just brought up, he's like, if he were to retire in the near future, I don't think it would be after this season. It would be next season when his contract ends. But he wasn't by any means strongly. I mean, I was surprised. I'll just say I was surprised. I heard Klay Thompson's bite before I saw what the article was. And I was like, what's this report? Because I hadn't seen any report. And I'm constantly, on Twitter and following Warriors news. And I was like, what report out that Klay Thompson is retiring? This is crazy.
It is.
And then, eventually saw what the origin of his comment was. And I was surprised, because I don't think that Connor made any type of strong statement. He didn't state it as fact. And like I said, even his opinion, wasn't, like I said, it was like, if he were to retire in the near future. I just didn't think it was a super strong opinion. I understand, though, players can get sensitive when retirement talks do come up. And Klay Thompson's a player who we know has been through a lot in the last several seasons. It means a lot to him to play basketball.
Right.
So it may have just come from a place like that. And I hope that Connor is able to smooth it over with him. We know he's a great journalist, a great friend of the show. And I don't think he did anything wrong, personally.
Same. Absolutely. And, I took a nap and I woke up to your text message, like about that story. And I was like, what is going on here?
I had no idea. I was like, where this came from?
And
I hadn't seen a report. You would think it would have been everywhere if there was a report out that Thompson was considering retirement. What?
Exactly. And like I said, Connor is a friend of ours. I consider him a very close friend, and he had no ill intent behind that. That was just, like I said, when you're on sports talk radio, you're just conversing. You're just just spitting takes all day. It doesn't mean you take an opinion and run with it. Because like I said, yeah, your husband is, on 95.7 The Game, the flagship station of the Golden State Warriors. I'm a guest on there sometimes. You are. And if they took every opinion I said on there and ran with it like it's fact, my God, man, I'd have to quit. I could never at least be a guest on a radio talk show again if I did that. Anyways, I'm seeing the chat. We'll get to as much of those as we can in just a moment. I first got to give some love to a longtime sponsor of this program, and that's BetOnline. Let me get that overlay going. All right, so betonline.net is your number one source for betting football, because we're fully into the season. I'm sure on other talk shows they're talking about Christian McCaffrey to the Niners. The start of the new basketball season is obviously here. Kylen, I'm going to give you the line for tonight's Warriors-Nuggets game. The Warriors are favored by 4.5. The money line is minus 190 for the Warriors, plus 165 for the Nuggets, and the over-under 229.5. Any feelings there?
In case you see a little tail, my doggy has decided to come in and join the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube. And as for the line, I'd hammer the Warriors in the over. I think it'll be a good game, but I think we saw in the postseason last year that the Warriors are the far. Oh, and we really do have a photo bomber.
Love it.
Here.
No, that's a good photo. That's the best photo bomber.
Warriors are the far superior team, and I would hammer over 4.5 for sure.
Oh, nice. All right, there you go. Well, and again, any of you can just go to BetOnline and bet on the action. You can find the latest player developments, team matchups, and as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting. So let's say you place a bet on the Warriors minus 4.5. You're realizing, whoa, this is getting closer than I thought it would. You could live bet and try to cover your tracks. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen today. For your second listen, Game to Game NBA provides every moment, every top performance, every result considered the NBA red zone, except after the fact. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can cover. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter and Instagram at Kylen Mills. Let's see anything going on in the chat here. Let's see what people are talking about. Let's see. Eric Sully says, I'd rather hear about Klay than the Dre and Poole thing. Well, we're going to talk a little more about Dre today. I'm sorry, but this is still newsworthy. Rico Suave writes, what are the chances of Jordan Poole making an all-star appearance? Kylen, do you have a feeling on that? I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's just unfortunate because the Warriors are so loaded with talent that he's not going to make an all-star appearance this year. If he was on a different team, I think that Jordan Poole would be much more likely and should be an all-star. I think that he is a very, very real sixth man of the year candidate. I don't know that he's an all-star, but like I said, I feel like part of the reason is that he is going to be coming in off the bench and because the Warriors are just so loaded with talent this season.
Absolutely. Eric Soley writes, I hope you have some shows lined up with Larry and Ryan. That's Larry Kruger's show, or our friend. I was
Yeah,
on there the other night. Kylen, you go on there sometimes? Yeah, we'll be going on there a lot. That's a fun show. It's much more carefree, less restrictive,
it is.
profanities galore. What about Draymond Green? A few people on here are talking about Draymond Green. Like Sid Dre writes, or Sid Day, I'm sorry, writes, I just pray Dre keeps his sanity. I think that's what you're trying to say. And overall, we have a good season. I want to play this soundbite from JaMychal Green yesterday. And this is going to lead to some Draymond Green talk. I'm sorry, folks, but he's one of the main players on this team. And what he did a few weeks ago was crazy. It was insane. So let me play this soundbite from JaMychal Green, who's so far so good. It's one game. But he talked about wanting a championship for himself and why he came to the Warriors. Here's JaMychal Green.
The Warriors kind of have a reputation as an organization that helps some guys kind of revamp or revitalize their career. Was that kind of a draw for you in a way after?
Nah, come to win a championship. After seeing those rings yesterday, I got to give me one. Yeah.
The Warriors kind
I love that because the insinuation was, are you coming here to rehabilitate your career like a lot of players do? And he was like, I just want to win a ring. I want that ring. Your thoughts on JaMychal Green in his press conference yesterday, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, you love hearing that. And I think that Warriors fans should be thrilled to death that players are coming to the Warriors because they do see this as an opportunity to win a championship. And that's exactly what we heard from Otto Porter Jr., Nemanja Bjelica, and some of those other veterans who joined the team last season as well, is that they see the special thing that's happening with the Warriors culture. They know that this is a championship caliber team. And they say, hey, I want to get a ring before I retire, So they come to the Warriors, I think, because they want to be a part of something they know is special.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad he sees that. It still blows my mind that players like Patty Mills, for example, who the Warriors pursued, Paul Millsap, they turned their back on the Warriors. Goran Dragic, another example. I don't know what they were thinking going to the Nets. It's like, what do you expect with that absolute feces show there? But another thing to talk about with JaMychal Green is, look, there is a possibility. Sorry, Dub Nation, to be a little negative here, but there is a possibility that Draymond Green is gone after this year. That is a distinct possibility. If he opts in to his player option, which will pay him $27 million plus change next year, the Warriors might decide to trade him. They might, or he might stay. Who knows? He could also become a free agent and decide to join his buddy LeBron James in LA, or go back to his hometown of Saginaw, Michigan, and more specifically play for the Detroit Pistons. Who knows what's going to happen? But JaMychal Green, he's not going to replace Draymond, period. But defensively and as a rebounder, he could come close to that. He could be enough of a replacement for Draymond Green where if the Warriors lose Draymond after this year, you won't feel it as much. You're going to feel it offensively because JaMychal Green is not a ball handler. He's not a notoriously amazing passer. But what Draymond provides that's most important is his defense. Your thoughts on JaMychal maybe being the potential savior? He's going to be much cheaper after this season. And being a replacement, you can't replace Draymond Green, but what do you feel about JaMychal maybe being that guy that the Warriors go with in the future?
I think that I really like what we've seen early on from him. I thought he played great in the season opener. I don't know if I'm there yet to feel like he could potentially replace Draymond Green. I also feel like Draymond Green, I just have a hard time with the Warriors potentially parting with him because of the intangibles he brings to the team.
True.
I do think JaMychal's skill set is very comparable to Draymond's, but JaMychal Green hasn't won 4 championships in the Bay Area. He doesn't have that relationship with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Andre Iguodala, and now with some of the other members of the Warriors. And I just feel like we saw it last season when Draymond Green was injured, just how big of an impact he has on the energy of the team and the way the team carries themselves. And I just don't know yet because I don't know him well enough to say if JaMychal Green has that type of leadership. Because to me, Draymond Green, of course, I say leadership, and obviously what he did during the preseason was counterintuitive to that. But in past seasons, that's what Draymond's brought to the team. Is he's brought the energy, he's brought the firepower, the way that he directs people on the floor, and the energy he brings off the floor is really what has fueled this Golden State Warriors team.
Yeah.
And in order for them to move on from him completely, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know yet that JaMychal Green could be that player. But I do think that watching him, they do have very comparable skill sets. One thing that I did write about that kind of ties back to Klay, I just wrote an article last night for Yardbarker in regards to kind of what Klay not retiring means for the Golden State Warriors. First of all, fans should be very excited because they get to watch the Splash Brothers for another couple seasons. I predict Klay Thompson will extend with the Warriors at the end of his contract, which is in the summer of 2024. I think they'll reach a deal. Steph Curry is under contract through 2026. So, I mean, I think we have like 4, maybe 5 seasons left with Klay and Curry. And I just would be very shocked if those two are staying and still in their prime, or at least still able to play for a majority of those seasons at a high level, if Draymond wouldn't want to stay here.
Right.
And then if the Warriors would be okay with parting ways with him. And a big part of that would be if Steph and Klay are okay with parting ways with Draymond Green, because, that trio has been the heart of this organization for the last decade. So I think like right after the punch, I was initially thinking like, hey, my mind was initially like, hey, is it worth it now to keep this guy around who's creating all these problems? But like taking a step back and really thinking about it, and now hearing that Klay's going to be around, like I do feel stronger, or more strongly, that Draymond Green is going to end up sticking around as well. I just feel like if Klay and Steph are still here and the rest of the team is still intact, and let's say they win another championship, like I would be shocked if Draymond walks away from that. And then I would be shocked if, honestly, Steph and Klay were like, yeah, all right, see you, Draymond. Like we heard in the offseason that Steph was very much advocating for the Warriors offering him an extension, and initially a max extension, which is not going to happen now. But I also think that, Steph holds the keys to the castle when it comes to the Warriors. And if he wants Draymond to stay, I think there's a really good chance it'll happen. The Warriors are going to have to get creative in regards to how they try to curb some of this, rising cap space, but we have to hope that new CBA is going to, hopefully allow an exception for a team's own draft picks.
Let's really hope for that. That's a game changer. If that rule does change, again, Keith Smith of Spot Track, NBA insider, cap expert, came on the show 2 months ago and said he feels confidently that the CBA is going to be revised so that draft picks are no longer part of the luxury tax penalty. And if that happens, I don't think Dre's going anywhere. I think, I really feel strongly with that. I also want to assuade Rico Suave here a little bit, who writes, if Curry and Klay retire with the Warriors, I'll sleep peacefully. They're not going anywhere. I am so confident. I would bet the house on Curry and Klay retiring as Warriors. And I felt confidently until recently about Dre being a part of that too. And now, you're right. I still think it could happen. I just bring up the JaMychal thing just because it's good fodder, and you never know. I mean, you never know. There is a possibility that Dre might decide, I'm done with this. Or, I mean, dude, he loves LeBron. He loves LeBron. Like, it's weird almost, but how much of an affinity he has for LeBron James. But anyway, so when we meet again, it'll be Monday. Oh, sorry. By that time, the Warriors will have played the Nuggets, and then Sunday they play the Sacramento Kings at home. I'm very curious to see how that matchup goes. The Kings did not play as super great in their first game. They're 0-1. What do you think is going to happen come Monday? Will the Warriors be 3-0? Do you think either of those teams will beat the Warriors? Your thoughts as we go into the weekend?
I think the Warriors are going to come out 3-0 of the weekend. Did you watch the Kings game at all?
A little bit, yeah.
The Kings season opener. Yeah, I don't think they have anywhere close to what it takes to beat the Warriors. Maybe on an off night when the Warriors are resting a lot of their better players, maybe. But I think the Warriors are going to come out 3-0. Another thing I want to mention, I think someone commented about any idea what the odds are of a new agreement happening versus not happening in regards to the CBA, because I was reading quite a bit about this. So the CBA is initially supposed to be up in the summer of 2024. Both sides have an opt-out, meaning they could opt out and it would end in June of 2023. That decision would have to be made by December 15th of this year. So just a little bit about what some of those deadlines are. And there are reports out there that I was just reading this weekend that talks have already started, that Adam Silver and the Players Association have initially begun those conversations, and that they're going very well, and that it's going in a positive direction. Nothing like what we saw with the MLB. Some fans were scarred by that lockout that happened this past year.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But everything that I'm reading is that the conversations are going really, really well, and that if they do have an opt-out, they do both want to opt out and they want to reach a new agreement instead by June of 2023, that it seems like there shouldn't be any problem with that agreement being reached, both sides being on the same page. At least that's early indications that it's been a very positive environment in which they're having conversations. But so the earliest then that a new CBA would be ratified would be this upcoming summer of 2023. Which would be great for the Warriors, as we discussed, if an exception does get added.
Great research, by the way. Yeah, I guarantee that they're not going to opt in for the next year.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Sorry.
I was just saying, I agree. I mean, there should be a new agreement this upcoming summer, but the talks have already started and they seem to be going well. So that's a good sign.
Absolutely. And regardless, man, props to Lacob and Gruber for opening the checkbook, paying those two guys. I mean, that just eliminates such a massive distraction. Props to Wiggins for taking a slight pay cut and while being pragmatic in the process. Look, you're still filthy rich, all right? Like so now you're in a happy place. I just love it. I love it. If you're a member of Dub Nation, these are fantastic, glorious times. Revel in it, enjoy it. And the Warriors play the Nuggets tonight at Chase Center, Sunday at Chase Center against the Kings. And then when we come back on Monday, hopefully they'll be 3-0. I wanted to give some PrizePicks recommendations, but there are no odds yet for the Warriors, so I can't do that at the time of recording this. But regardless, I might tweet something out if I see anything later. Anything you'd like to promote? Anything we have not talked about before we call it a wrap? What are you thinking, Kylen?
I want to make some bets on when we're going to see Andre Iguodala in a Warriors uniform.
Ooh.
I think it was Steve Kerr had a really funny quote yesterday. I'm sure you heard that one as well. Where he said he made a joke, but he was just like, yeah, we don't really know. He's like, I'm sure that Andre will announce it on his podcast sometime in the coming days. And he was being tongue in cheek about it. But I know that a lot of people have been commenting just kind of on social media, like, what the heck? We bring Andre Iguodala back. Now he's not playing. What's his status? And Steve Kerr apparently doesn't have much clarity either and is expecting an update via podcast from Andre Iguodala. But I know that's something I've seen fans talking about. I'm hoping he plays soon, that
is ridiculous. Like, just stay tuned for my podcast to find out. Like, that's wild. Rico Suave, by the way, writes, do you think we'll see Patrick Baldwin Jr., aka Peanut Butter and Jelly, and Ryan Rollins on the Santa Cruz team? I want to mention Ryan Rollins hopefully will come on this show soon. I've been hyping that up for a while. Yeah, I do think, I could see Patrick Baldwin Jr. playing significant minutes for the Warriors this year. I really do. Like, he impressed in the preseason, and given his size, given he clearly has natural instincts for the ball, I love the fact that the rest of the NBA is looking to the Warriors in that pick and just steaming with pure envy over the fact that the Warriors yet again nailed the draft pick at number 28, especially. But yeah, I do think they'll be playing plenty of minutes in Santa Cruz. You have any thoughts on that, Kylen?
Yeah, I think they both will. I agree. I think that Patrick Baldwin Jr. could be or can be a contributor this season. Of course, right now we know he's dealing with a thumb sprain, and hopefully that's something that resolves soon. But I think either way, they'll both get a lot of run in Santa Cruz, and I think they both looked good in preseason. We saw some flashes that they both have NBA potential. Really random side note, but one of my favorite quotes that I heard on Sports Talk Radio, as we were talking about at the beginning of our show, was that those two were asked what their first purchases were, since signing the contract, becoming professionals, whatever. And Rollins bought a Mercedes. Patrick Baldwin Jr. bought an e-bike. I don't know why, but the e-bike made me laugh.
Because it's random. It's so, and they're not that expensive, are they? I mean, I guess they're like $1,000 or a couple thousand, but that's random.
I just thought that was hysterical.
The car thing is such a waste of money, in my opinion. That's always something I've been taught growing up is cars are not great investments because they depreciate the moment you take that car off the lot. Yeah. It just loses a huge chunk of its value. And And I've never been an ostentatious individual. I like my truck. I just keep things simple, but I don't know. Does the Benz impress you? If you saw Ryan Rollins rolling around in the Benz, would that impress you, Kylen? Or do superficial things like that catch your eye? What do you think? I'm not accusing you of being superficial, but I'm just curious if.
No, I personally am not one of those people. Like, I don't notice, like, I don't pay extra close attention to what people are driving. But I think that maybe he thinks the young ladies in the Bay Area might catch their eye, cruise up, rolling the Benz. So hopefully it works out for him.
It can't hurt. And Falcon something whatever writes PBJ's an intellectual. I didn't know that. I don't know what you base that on, but I hope he is. That would be awesome. All right, I guess we're done. Have a great weekend, Kylen. And again, congrats on the Yard Barker gig. If you follow Kylen Mills on Twitter, Instagram, I'm sure you're publishing links every time you have a new byline there.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I have one today that I got to get out there.
I love it. Good stuff. And Rico Suave, thank you for the love. We try. That's all we can do. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Kylen's going to be back with me again. Later, everyone.